Akanishino, the daughter of a wealthy man, awakens early in the opening scene. After taking a bath, she gets ready for school. After that, her driver drives her to school in her own vehicle. The poor girl has no idea that a vehicle is following her around at all times. They remain silent as they await their opportunity to attack. When Nishino arrives at school, she beams as she makes her way down the hallway. There, she runs across Kagenou, the student she despises the most from school. Nishino remarks that despite his attractive appearance, Kagenou seldom ever glances in her direction, and instead stares off into space. Once more, Kagenou pronounces her name incorrectly. He annoys the teenage girl by calling her Nishimura once more. She is calmed down by Nishino, who also tells him her name. Before leaving, Kagenou calls her Nishimura once more and apologizes once again for calling her that way. One can never figure out what Kagenou might be contemplating. Perhaps he was Japan's Batman. Who knows? Anyway, Kagenou is still furious with him, even though everyone else is gathered around a cane. Kagenou was observed practicing his grasp while he waited for something to happen. Nishino visits the restroom a little while later to freshen up. She discusses her past experiences in middle school there. It seems that she had to keep quiet following something. That took place while she was still in the entertainment industry. Kagenou reads everything he can on gaining strength as well. Akane makes sure no one dislikes her by sitting by herself in the classroom after class. She claims that she always acts like the popular girl and the teacher's pet in order to appease everyone. Before returning home, Kagenou plays a few notes on the piano. Akane and her teacher wrap up their study session by dusk. When she phones her driver to come get her, he doesn't pick her up. It is then discovered that her driver had been attacked and severely beaten. Akane, who is totally deprived of anything, leaves school and is earlier abducted by the men in the jeep. Kagenou observes everything and remains still to evade being discovered. A few minutes later, Akane awakens to discover herself strapped to a chair in an abandoned structure. She is ridiculed and called names by the thugs. Meanwhile, Kagenou takes off the weights he's been holding and dons a covert disguise. As it seems, I was correct all along. After donning his outfit, Kagen bursts into the abandoned structure housing Akane. To the thugs who don't appreciate his diminutive size, he poses as the chic thug killer. After shattering the goons' bones, Kagenou confronts their leader, an ex-military man using tonfas batons instead of a crowbar. The two congratulate Kagenou for being an opponent worthy enough to face him after having a brief conversation with a former military officer. He overwhelms Kagenou in the first half and makes him change his strategy. Now, Kagenou smashes the military man to death with a crowbar, treating it like a regular baton. Kagenou frees Akane from the ropes and lets her go after taking out all of his adversaries. At that moment, he vanishes. When Kagenou reaches the roof, he bemoans his lack of success in facing the military guy. Akane sees to it that her father conceals the events of that evening. The following day, she goes back to school and greets Kagenou, anticipating that he will pronounce her name incorrectly once more. He gets it right this time, though. Startled, Miss Hino only watches the enigmatic man turn and leave. A few hours later, Kagenou is reported to have been struck by a truck in the news. Kagenou recounts his tale in the next scenario. It becomes out that his only goal in being watchful is to shield his people from the threats in the outside world. Ever from his early years, he has been training hard and developing the habit of hitting miscreants in order to experience real-time battle. He also talks about the obstacles he had to get beyond in order to grow so strong and take on the role of the Shadow's Eminence. Following the brief introduction to Kagenou's existence, Kagenou is shown on a tall structure with a few other women who are all dressed in themed costumes. They report a lead to Kagenou, but not much else is known about them at this time. Kagenou leads his group on their next mission to locate their new adversaries in the closing moments. Kagenou emerges from the shadows as a different person. We learn a little bit more about Kagenou's new life. It turns out that Kagenou was resurrected as Sid Kagenou, the son of Baron Kagenou, in a realm where magic was practiced after he was struck by the truck. Kagenou learns about the Cult of Diablos from Alpha, a new member of their covert organization. Hiding in the shadows, the Cult of Diablos is a demonic organization of thieves that want to bring darkness and destruction to the entire planet. Sid, also known as Kagenou, informs Alpha that they will just need to take action. Kagenou then goes on to tell the tale of his rebirth. He was reincarnated as Sid, and is the younger brother of his gifted sister Claire, only minutes after he was killed by the truck in the actual world. Sid continues to conceal his exceptional abilities from the public as the years pass, letting his sister triumph and outperform him in every tournament they attend. Kagenou, his father, occasionally looked down on weak Sid and always had high expectations for his sister. They had no idea that Sid was a trained vigilante by night. One tragic night, Sid dons his new slime suit and defeats some bandits who had recently slaughtered some civilians by using the built-in sword. After eliminating them all, Sid searches the bandits' belongings and discovers a living, rotting mass of flesh that was formerly controlled by an entity. Sid decides that magic overload is the magic in this situation, so he takes the blob and uses it to contain the magic overload for a full month. When he eventually succeeds, a stunning young woman is created. The first person she encounters when she looks for reform is Sid. She is informed by Sid that she was cursed by the Cult of Diablos occult, and he extends an invitation for her to join his new group. The woman purchases it, even though Sid was unaware of them, and she makes a commitment to accompany Sid on his search for the Cult of Diablos. She is clothed by Sid and welcomed into his group. He goes on to call their new team the Shadow Garden. He gives the girl the moniker Alpha and instructs her to start recruiting new teammates before departing. The following day, Sid engages in another combat with his older sister and lets her beat him up. He feeds her ego by praising her as usual. Then she gets a call from a maid to come back to the house. His sister is 15 now, and it's time for her to start school at the Magic Academy in the kingdom. That day was supposed to be her farewell celebration, but sadly, she was abducted. Sid and Beta talk about where to find Claire, while her parents argue about the kidnapping. Sid shows Beta the location of his sister's detention right away by pointing her toward a map in his office, so that they can save his sister that evening. He instructs Beta to get in touch with the other members. Claire is questioned about her brother by Viscount Grease, the one who kidnapped her. Chained up, Claire tells the stranger not to touch her frail younger brother. She even manages to free herself from the shackles and assaults him. After Grease knocks her down, he questions whether she is the person they have been searching for. A royal guard bursts in to inform them that they have been attacked at that same moment. Without Sid, of course, Grease gathers the other inhabitants of the Shadow Garden and braces himself. After a brief battle with Alpha, Grease realizes he cannot defeat her and takes an enhancement pill. He then buries a hole in the ground and rushes in Sid's direction. He chooses to battle Sid once again when he comes to him. This round, Sid slashes his body while deftly dodging all of Grease's blows. Grease grabs a few more enhancement pills and downs them all since he has nothing left to lose. He becomes a monster as a result and continues to attack Sid. Sid maintains his composure and repels all blows aimed at him. Ultimately, Grease is defeated and killed by Sid. He then returns to his sister and lets her out of his restraints. Furious that she was unable to defeat Grease, Claire goes back home and spends dark nights at the Minoru Magic Academy. The most shocking news of Sid's life is revealed to him. All the members of the Shadow Garden, his team, were leaving him. He returned alone now. Following the dissolution of the Shadow Garden, Sid lives alone. He enrolls in his sister's class at the aristocratic Magic Academy upon turning 15. It is Sid's day to arrive at his new school. He reflects on his past life and how much he would have liked to have magical abilities while riding the train. After giving the Shadow Garden some thought, he decides that it was better for them to split apart because he would soon be departing for school. After arriving in the city unscathed, Sid makes his way through his new existence. He can't live in the dorms on university because he comes from a bottom-low noble family. So, Sid and his pals Skell and Poe rent an apartment away from college. The three of them would get together downstairs each morning and ride together to school. Sid meets up with his friends one morning as usual. All of them board the bus and go out to attend their classes. Sid talks on how wonderful life is now that his background as a student is blossoming while riding the bus. It's all good. No one knows about his abilities or his covert life. He is reminded of their wager by Skell and Poe. The most attractive girl in their school, Princess Alexia, would be the target of an aggressive rejection from the person who gets the lowest grade on their class test. Sid needs to ask Alexia out since he received the lowest rating. He pulls off the act and makes the most awkward approach to asking Alexia out that night. Alexia unexpectedly consents to be his girlfriend. Skell and Poe are still in disbelief over what they see. The following day, Alexia has lunch with Sid and his pals and gives them part of her cuisine. Sid takes her food without hesitation, unafraid of the attention he is receiving. With a smug expression, Alexia informs him that she has switched his fencing lesson with hers so they may train together. Sid doesn't understand. Sid trains alongside the upper noble members in the subsequent class. He makes his introduction and endures Mr. Zenon's dull lecture about their school's fencing program in comparison to the traditional one. He matches Sid against Alexia after saying everything he has to say. When Sid spars with Alexia, he observes her stance and style. She spends far too much time on the fundamentals. He even makes an attempt to see if they are alike, but it appears that she is simply unwilling to move on. Following their sparring, Zenon and Alexia have a conversation. Sid overhears their chat and discovers that Alexia is engaged to Zenon. Alternatively, he believes they are. He goes away as soon as he realizes why Alexia actually accepted his proposal. Sid confronts Alexia later that day, asking her why she's taking advantage of him. He is informed by Alexia that she is also aware of his bet with his friends, and she threatens to expose him should he reveal her. She also advises him to follow the boyfriend until Zenon stops trying to find her. Sid challenges her, telling her he's not that cheap. After listening to his grievances, Alexia chooses to compensate him for being her partner. Sid happily takes the money and agrees to be her dog in exchange. For the next few scenes, Sid and Alexia maintain their boyfriend-girlfriend persona. Zenon watches them with cool composure. That day, Sid and Alexia take the train to a nearby town after school. After learning about their connection, Alexia is constantly griping about how composed Zenon is. To grab some ice cream, they make a stop at an ice cream stand. Sid questions Alexia about her strong dislike of Zenon while they have their food. He appears to be the ideal man that any lady would want to marry thus far. Alexia tells him that she detests how flawless he is, and she goes on to state that she likes Sid, or her Feo, since he owns up to his imperfections. Sid acts like the wonderful boyfriend he is, keeping to himself. When they're returning to university, Alexia and Sid get intimate. She begins by expressing her dislike of being compared to her beautiful sister and her desire to become the best. She goes on to discuss the main cause of her failure to advance her sword technique. Alexia claims that her sword style is nothing in comparison to her sister's, which is why she despises it. If there's one thing Sid admired about Alexia's sword technique, it's that, despite his imperfections, he would never put up with anyone talking down to him about what he liked. It's that she endured the agony of following the fundamentals and never making a mistake. Asking him why he said something so lovely to her, Alexia draws her blade. Sid remains composed and doesn't respond to her. Alexia heads back to school after calling it quits on her 2-week relationship with Sid. When Skell and Poe walk to their classes the following day, they both ask Sid about the success of his brief relationship. Skell and Poe are taken aback when Sid shares the dull information with them. While the three are en route to question Sid, Zenon and 2 other students stop them. Since Zenon was the last person to be seen with Alexia, He informs Sid that she did not return home the previous evening. The main suspect was him. Sid is immediately taken into custody and gives himself up to the knights. Alexia is left wondering where she came from and how she got into a cage with a half-monster, half-human creature. Alexia's blood is being drawn by a crazy scientist who enters the room holding a tray full of large syringes. Alexia offers him no resistance at all, letting him carry out his actions. Sid is being questioned and tormented by the royal guards in the meantime. Sid maintains his composure and pretends to be sincerely crushed and despairing, even though he could take them all once and for all. He doesn't worry that the guards are torturing him because of his actions. Remaining at the hiding place, Alexia tells the scientist not to draw too much blood should she run out of blood to give him. When his lab is destroyed, the scientist goes into mini-fear mode, approaches the monster in the vicinity and strikes him. He then gives Alexia some oatmeal on a platter. Meanwhile, Princess Iris, Alexia's sister, works with the royal guards to identify her sister's kidnapper after learning of her sister's abduction. She is informed by the guards of Sid's reluctance to provide any information. Iris, though, advises them to take a different tack. They would let go of him this time and track his every step. Then perhaps they could catch him red-handed. The guards take her advice to heart and get to work. Claire is complaining about her younger brother's harsh treatment outside of Iris's workplace. She creates so much havoc that the guards had to step in and put her under control. A couple of hours following dusk, Sid is let go nearly nude. With his clothes on, he boards the train and travels home. He leaves taking them out to someone else, even though he knows the two men are following him on the train. Upon reaching his room, he discovers Alpha is anticipating his arrival. What was she doing there, he wonders. As he munches on a hamburger, Alpha informs him that they have discovered new information about the Cult of Diablos and is looking to add more people to their team. Sid thanks her for her assistance and collapses into his bed, exhausted. While they finish their investigation into the cult, Alpha helps him change his clothes and gives him advice on how much to trust them. Sid assures her he doesn't mind at all. Alpha informs Sid that Delta was also present and would like to see him before heading out. Sid naps for a few hours and wakes up with a burst of vitality. He dons his slime costume and leaves a letter for Delta at her residence. After that, he waits in silence for Delta to return home. When she does, he extends an invitation for her to accompany him on his mission to locate the Diablos cult's whereabouts. Delta is ecstatic that their employer is at last back in operation and is very surprised. After SSID departs from Delta's home and is spotted wandering among Somalis, the two guards who had previously subjected him to torture track him down and toss one of Princess Alexia's boots on him. They then go ahead and arrest him after accusing him of stealing the footwear. SSID doesn't play nice with them this time. After dispatching every guard with his slime suit sword, he launches the assault on the Cult of Diablos. Sid and his group track down and eliminate every cult spy in the city, one by one. In another scene, the insane scientist charges into the dungeon, triumphant that he has at last created a serum potent enough to transform the half-monster in the adjacent cell into a full-fledged monster. He gives the man an injection and turns him into a monster without second thought. He is killed by the monster, and Alexia is released. After that, it moves into the city to terrorize everyone. Picking up her blade, an astonished Alexia searches for a way out. When she locates Xenon, he acknowledges that he is the one responsible, and she questions why he would commit such a heinous act. Xenon tells her that in order to advance in his covert organization, he only required enough royal blood. Alexia fights him out of frustration. Sadly, Alexia is overcome and falls to the ground. Sid emerges as the Eminence in the shadows, dressed in his purest black attire, just as Xenon is about to kill her. Sid makes an introduction before getting ready to battle Xenon. Xenon knows Shadow, the runt who has been eliminating cult members lately. He challenges Sid to a fight, underestimating Sid. Sid retaliates against his blows and escalates the battle. To ward off the monster, a horde of royal guards swarm the city. Before attempting to contain the monster, they start to evacuate all of the residents. After joining them, Princess Iris tackles the beast by herself. She cuts the creature with her sword after casting a magical spell on it. To the surprise of all, the creature starts to mend itself. Iris makes a decision about what to do next, strengthening the spell she casts on her sword and continuing to slash the creature repeatedly. A little later, Alpha appears to replace Iris. When Alpha notices the human's anguish within the monster, she dispatches it with a single blow. Startled, Iris inquires about Alpha's identity. She is merely informed by Alpha that she is a Shadow Garden member. Alexia gets to watch two magic legends engage in sword fighting in the sewers in the interim. Zenon unleashes his magic powers in a fit of rage at Sid for defeating him. Even so, Sid overwhelms him and brings him to the ground. Zenon unleashes his full force and engages Sid in combat. Still, Sid overwhelms him and brings him to the ground. Alexia understands that Sid and she have comparable combat styles. She starts to consider the possibility that Sid might indeed be the Sid she is familiar with. Zenon is still not willing to give up. He pulls out the enhancement pills, swallows them whole, turns into a beast, and lunges in Sid's direction. Sid maintains his composure and defeats Zenon's mystical force. After destroying his medications, he unleashes his own strength. As everything turns blue, Zenon questions how a single person could possess such a great deal of magical power. Sid cuts himself off from his Genesis narrative, and the reason he strives to be as powerful as he can get as he stammers and stumbles through a few lines. Even though Zenon continues to try to strike, Sid pushes him down and uses all of his strength this time. He lifts his sword as though he's about to hit the floor. Sid shouts the catchphrase, "I am Adam Ike," and instantly transforms into pure energy. He explodes that area of the town due to this magical energy leak. When everything returns to normal, Sid vanishes and Alexia is unhurt. She becomes more determined this time to have her way though. She swings her sword around, picking it up. Iris dashes over to check on her at that very moment. Hugging her sister, Alexia expresses gratitude for her support. A few days later, Sid and Alexia get together at school to chat. After the event in the sewers a short while ago, Alexia informs Sid that she has since come to appreciate her sword style. Since Zenon has passed away, she then timidly asks Sid out. Sid turns her down, but only this once. Alexia's expression of regret and contempt is frightening, and she reacts by severely hurting him. Nobody has been able to determine why there is blood in that area of the school as of late. How do I put it? Girls have a hard time accepting rejection. In any case, the following scene depicts Alpha gathering with the other Shadow Garden members to discuss the most recent rebellion in the town. It seems that someone chose to exploit their name as justification to murder the defenseless. They consider their options on the current situation. Iris and her guards are also thinking about how best to look into the Cult of Diablos and the Shadow Garden in the meantime. Sid meets a pretty bashful girl with pink hair. He converses with her and helps her up. A citizen is pursued into an alleyway by someone impersonating his shadow, who then kills him there. He keeps walking away from the man saying, "We are Shadow Garden." Skell and Poe persistently question Sid about him and Alexia at school the following day. Sid keeps reminding them that they aren't back together and that they just broke up. Sid is referred to be a wimp by Skell and Poe for not even touching his once-in-a-lifetime lover. They urge him to follow them to a store where strange toys are sold. Meanwhile, Iris and Alexia set up a meeting with the father of the girl with pink hair that Sid previously observed. Since she's a renowned researcher, they ask her to figure out who the Shadow Garden is. Iris pushes the girl to accept the offer, but she does so grudgingly. She leaves, giving Alexia the responsibility of keeping an eye on her. That day, Sid and his friends board the train to the shop after class. When they get to the store, a woman comes up to ask one of them to fill out a survey for their division. She selects Sid, who is the most composed of the group, and leads him into a hidden chamber. All of the people from his Shadow Garden establishment, including the awkward Gamma, are waiting for him when he gets there. Reversing his newly acquired power, Sid ascends to the throne. He shows his girls a lot of magical mana and asks insightful questions about the new store Gamma, which he helped to build. Gamma informs him that business is doing great. Sid is shocked when she shows him the 1 billion zen she has made from sales over the years. Sid is informed by Gamma that she is leading a team of researchers to determine who is intimidating their name. Sid packs up her belongings and gets ready to leave the building. Gamma presents him to Nu, their newest member, and begs him to bless her before he leaves. Sid proceeds to steal Zen in order to purchase chocolate. Later that evening, he runs back to their apartment complex and meets up with his buddies Poe and Skell. He recalls his last meeting with Alexia as he runs. He suddenly realizes that he almost feels the pain of the sword slash. Sid trips and falls, telling his friends to get away from him because he's about to poop. Despite how blatantly false this is, Pio and Skell accept it. They dash back to their flat, giving Sid enough time to transform into Shadow, his other personality. Shadow sees Alexia fighting the phony Shadow while searching the town for her. He watches her dispatch one of them and notices the others following suit. Shadow jumps off the roof building he was at and destroys every false Shadow Garden because Alexia is outnumbered. When Alexia sees him, she asks him, "Who are you really?" Sid instructs her to get out of his affairs and turns to go. He makes his way across the town to locate the remaining members of the phony Shadow Garden and gradually eliminates them. He is joined by Gamma, who aids him in eliminating them all. Somewhere, the people actually in charge of the fictitious Shadow Garden are deliberating about their next move. Alexia tells her sister about her experience in the interim. She informs Iris that their battle with the Shadow Garden is a ruse. It doesn't matter, Iris assures her. She will still take them all down. Next day, Skell gets to make the move on a woman of a higher social status. The woman's fiancé arrives and beats him up as he is doing this. Pio and Sid arrive at the library. Poe gets to ask his sweetheart out now. This time, he makes the same mistake and terrifies the woman to no end. Sid also makes the decision to offer the first woman he encounters some chocolate. Fortunately, he locates the woman with the pink hair from before and presents it to her with a casual demeanor before heading off. Sid is recognized by a woman with pink hair who brings his chocolate home. Her dad stops by to talk to her before she starts her investigation. What is chocolate, she wondered, and why did Sid give it to her? It can only signify that the guy is in love with her, her father informed her. She must thus respond to him before he grows disinterested and finds another girl. A girl with pink hair tends to her ailing father. The following day at school, a woman with pink hair can't stop staring at Sid's chocolate, speculating about his motivations. She tastes the chocolate and declares it to be really good. While waiting, Sid and his new recruit Nu take a leisurely stroll to school. The two discuss their latest study while seated on an outdoor bench. He receives an update from Nu, who also informs him that the cult intends to assume their identity in order to murder a few innocent people in order to draw them into the open. Sid continues to stare at the poster he is holding and muses over whether it would be prudent to roll for the event that is listed on it. He maintains his composure and leaves Nu behind. Next up is the fencing competition. Claire attacks first, slamming into her opponent. Following the first match, Sid faced Rose Oriana, the princess of the Kingdom of Oriana and chairman of the student council, are summoned to the arena together. When the moment arrives for them to engage in combat, Sid leaps at Rose without intending to strike her. However, Rose delivers a blow that knocks Sid backward. Sid dashes home with a little bag of fake blood and splatters it all over his body to give the impression that he has serious injuries. Sid requests extra time from the referee, just as he is ready to announce Rose the winner. Rose grants his plea and is reunited with him. As they leap at one another, Sid is struck once more. Sid continues without stopping, and is struck by the same individual multiple times. Rose is astonished and angered that he is still standing. She makes the decision to utilize magic once more, so she charges at Sid and casts her spell. But the referee intervenes and puts an end to the brawl. Despite being the winner, Rose is still upset that she was unable to crush Sid's confidence. Sid visits the clinic following the incident to get his wounds examined. With bandages covering his head, he exits the building. The woman with the pink hair comes over to greet. In exchange, she offers him a gift and brings him to an outdoor restaurant. Thanking her for the gift, Sid receives it. The girl with pink hair, subsequently identified as Sherry Barnett, runs to see her father, Lutheran Barnett, to tell him that she and the cute boy have finally become friends. As Lutheran joins them, he advises Sid to be close to his daughter. Sid learns more about Sherry from him, as well as the fact that his daughter is a stark researcher without any true friends. Sherry returns to her classroom to chew on her chocolates and reflect on her new buddy, Sid, following her encounter with Sid and her father. As she is doing so, she has an unexpected flashback to Alexia and wonders if Sid is still with her. She visits Alexia to confirm this for herself. She is shown to her room by Alexia, who also offers her some tea. She asks Alexia about her relationship with Sid after they have settled down. Alexia informs her that she is done with Sid and doesn't want to interact with the NPC. Additionally, she tries to defame Sid to Sherry, but this backfires badly because Sherry is thrilled that Sid is unmarried. After Sherry leaves, Alexia destroys her teacup, unable to contain her envy. Sid continues his NPC act as usual on this day in school. Before the teacher joins them to start the class for the day, he is observed chit-chatting with his fellow students. The Cult of Diablos ultimately carried out their plot at that precise moment. Their knight-like leader secretly enters the school and surrounds it with an isolation barrier. All of the pupils are taken hostage by members of the Cult of Diablos without prior notice. They arrive in Sid's classroom. While Sid's class is receiving a presentation from Rose Orellana of the Student Union, she intervenes to protect the class from the antagonists. Unfortunately, she loses control of her magic flow, and it seizes. She is defenseless since she cannot swing her sword without magic. One of the group throws themselves at her, but Sid intervenes and absorbs the blow. On the floor of the classroom, Sid passes out. Rose descends to see how Sid is doing. He faints and becomes lightheaded. Rose starts crying real hard at this bold move. After leaving Sid to perish, the robbers assemble the teachers and kids who are still alive in a hallway and take them prisoner. When everyone has left, Sid takes an unexpected action. It turns out that the genius has been manipulating the flow of blood to his brain through magic. He appeared dead for a few minutes till everyone left thanks to this tactic. Sid puts on his school jacket, now that he's back up, and goes about saving everyone. Rex, one of the crooks, discovers Sherry researching the relic. In an attempt to take the relic, he storms into her room and confronts her. Fortunately, Glenn and her other bodyguards save her. Sherry seizes the opportunity to get away from the crooks. Sid, on the other hand, climbs to the school's roof to see what's actually happening inside. He observes that the offender adhered to the traditional hostage scenario, leaving no one unattended. He makes the decision to hold off on becoming Shadow again until dusk. Still, he dispatches any guards he finds by shooting slime swords at them. Although Sherry consistently finds a way out of her building, the guards never stop noticing her. She has no idea that Sid is following her, eliminating every guard who might hurt her. She stumbles once and lands in Sid's arms. Sid informs her the new guidelines to follow in order to avoid being discovered by the crooks until dusk after she thanks her hero. Sherry informs Sid of the item preventing magic of any kind. She claims that the artifact she was studying, the Eye of Avarice, is an object that absorbs all magical energy in its area. That explains why Rose was unable to activate her magic sword in the first place. When Sid asks her whether there's a way to work magic around it, Sherry responds that no one in this planet is capable of using such high-level power. Sid asks her whether there's a method to counteract the effects of the avarice grinning. Sherry informs him that they can counteract the artifact's effects by using the control of the eye, but she will require certain tools that are hidden throughout the school. Sid finds Sherry's instruments when he gets up. Meanwhile, the leader of the criminal organization, the Knight, gives his soldiers the order to continue looking for the relic. To locate the relic, and the master fighter who has been eliminating their guards for the past while, Rex and 2 other troops search the academy. While traveling, Sid assaults and eliminates both of the guards. Then he turns to face Rex and ends his life too. New meets him after he has finished eliminating the criminal and informs him that the Shadow Garden has already entered the school and is awaiting his orders. In addition, she informs him that Gamma has taken over the group, and that the guards who are now devoid of magic will be unable to fight alongside them in order to liberate the students. After discovering the tweezer he's searching for, Sid returns to Sherry to help her manage the Eye of the Avarice, and thanks Gamma for her assistance. Rose and the other pupils are waiting for their hero to come to their aid. While Sid waits for darkness to fall in order to transform into his alter ego, Sherry writes a letter to her father pleading for his assistance. At last, Sid and Sherry turn on the control item for the artifact. When she's finished, Sid leads her to her father's aid down a dimly lit stairs. Sherry recalls a similar feeling she had the night her mother passed away before going down. She tells Sid that ever since then, her father has been the one who has helped her find her identity again. In order for her to ultimately save the world, Sid allows her to down the stairs. Rose and a few other students converse about defying authority and taking charge of the evening in the meantime. Rose advises them to exercise extreme caution and refrain from making hasty decisions in order to avoid losing their lives. One of the crooks snipes a pupil inside them while they are talking. Rose advises her coworkers to wait for the appropriate moment and maintains their composure. Sherry, meantime, makes it to the hall's roof at last. After discovering the Knight leader tinkering with a relic, she turns on the control device. She then tosses the control device in the direction of the Knight, disabling the magic absorption effects. Magic returns when the isolation barrier is turned off. Rose assaults one of the robbers right away, taking his sword in her hands. The students then rebel against her, and she gains their support. The majority of the criminals are defeated in a matter of minutes by the Magic Academy students, who then gradually take over power. Arriving as well, the other Shadow Garden members identify themselves as such. The Night Boss gives the order to engage the shadows in combat. Sid and his group of female warriors eliminate every soldier they encounter. When Rose sees her opportunity, she tells the kids to exit the theater. The thieves set fire to the entire school in order to keep them from fleeing. Rose, fortunately, manages to get the students out on time. She tells Iris about the Shadow Garden when they cross paths outside of campus. Iris is curious about their activities. Sherry continues looking for her father in the basements, but she is unable to locate him in time. In a hidden chamber, Sid confronts the Knight leader after catching up with him. The Knight leader reveals himself as Lutheran, Sherry's father, taking off his armor. The head of the Knights was Lutheran. Sid is told by Lutheran how he murdered his wife in front of their daughter in order to get the relic he had been longing for. Sid asks the demon whether his story is real, while remaining composed during the entire disclosure. He is informed that it is by Lutheran, who says he has no regrets about killing his cherished wife for the relic. Sid puts an end to the story and prepares to battle him. Lutheran initially overwhelms Sid, but Sid rises again as Shadow and engages Lutheran in a severe battle. Lutheran becomes stronger by fusing with the artifact after realizing he is greatly outmatched. Sid continues to block all of his attacks despite this. This infuriates Lutheran, who then uses all of his strength to assault Sid. Sid makes the decision to launch an offensive, slicing Lutheran all over his body until he faints. When Sherry gets there after the fight, she finds Shadow lying on her father's body. While refusing to reveal to her the whole truth about her father, Shadow abandons her to grieve over her father. The next scene features Alpha and the other members of the squad reading the newspaper, which paints Shadow and his gang as mass murderers and murderers. Still devoted to their goal are Alpha and the others. They would still be there to hunt down other evil shadows and keep the world safe. The following day, with no one left to live for except herself, Sherry tells Sid that she is leaving the Magic Academy to pursue her studies elsewhere. Sid asks her what her next intentions are before she departs. After informing him that it's a secret, Sherry departs for her trip. Catastrophic campus buildings have been in ruins since the catastrophic hostage episode at the school. Now that summer break has arrived, Sid spends his time relaxing at home. One day, his shadows send him a letter with some information about the sacred land. After reading the message, Sid chooses what to do next. Kagenou wakes up somewhere and stumbles about her room. Epsilon looks in the mirror and is content with her existence because of her master's influence. She gets dressed for her house and leaves. Beta changes into some clothes and goes outside after having another dream about Lord Shadow. She meets with Epsilon, her competitor for Shadow's attention, and she contrasts her and Epsilon's breast. While all is going on, Iris goes shopping with Alexia. The two women converse for a while, talking for the first time in a long time, until Luna, the establishment's president, interrupts and welcomes them. Iris and Alexia tell Luna over tea that Alexia went shopping to get supplies for her upcoming trip. After assuring her that everything will be all right, Luna asks Alexia what she needs. After Alexia specifies the exact style of apparel she wants, Luna leads her to the section of the store that sells undergarments for ladies. Put differently, she exhibits her collection of thongs to Alexia. Even though Iris tells Alexia not to wear the thongs, Alexia does so. A flashback to the night of the hostage incident at the academy is shown in the following scene. It turns out that after Sid rescued her from the evil guys that invaded the school, Rose fell in love with him. She tells the bandaged, indifferent youngster at Sid's nursing bed that she loves him. She continues to follow him around to this day, clinging to his arms at all times. She never stops praising Sid for looking after her that day and reminding him of it. Sid is still thinking about his goal, the sacred land, in the interim. It seems that they were all traveling to the sacred land via train. Sid was asked by Rose if he was indeed aiming for the goddess trial. Rose tells him that she knows he's such a kind and brave guy, and Sid tells her that's precisely what he's going for. After Sid grows weary of her digression, he gets up from his chair to survey the outer scenery. Rose stands up and walks with him to that location, declaring her love for him all the while. Rose continues to search for Sid even at night on the train, when he ought to be spending some alone time. In order to avoid the bug, Sid hides on his ceiling. Sid and Rose eventually reach the hallowed region of Lindworm after traveling for 2 days on the train. Rose notices her favorite author Natsume giving a book signing when they get off the train. Sid is forced to go with the pest to have her book signed. Additionally, he reads a few of Natsume's books and discovers something. He learns that the books this woman wrote in this otherworldly realm are identical to the ones she wrote in the one in which he passed away. Perhaps she was his reincarnation. He needed to confirm. Sid then signs a book that she has taken. He learns Natsume is a beta. Once he signs his book, Beta informs him that she has added information on the upcoming mission to the book. Returning to Rose, Sid looks through his books. He learns about the covert note that Beta left at the back of the book with Rose. Rose was unable to read it though, as it was written in an antiquated language. In another scene, Alpha examines the scene of Archbishop Drake's murder, wondering what he might have been concealing that led to his demise. A short while later, the guards arrive and Alpha departs. By nightfall, Sid is in a prime position to look for any illicit activity in the town. With Epsilon's assistance, he tracks down a phony who is impersonating them and eliminates him. After talking with her about the task, he passes everything up to her. Sid heads out of the crime scene in search of the next. Sid makes his way to the spa and sauna area for a hot tub swim. After taking off his clothing, he enters the on-site hot spring. He had no idea that Alexia was having a hot spring bath just next to him. She hides her already submerged body and backs away from the indifferent guy. She becomes agitated and tries to speak with Sid when she realizes he isn't looking at her. She starts by saying she is sorry for slicing him with her sword when he rejected her back then. Sid assures her everything is well. She then discusses the goddess trial, which the monks of Sacred Village were hosting. When Alexia tries to encourage Sid to attend the gathering, he consistently refuses. She eventually loses patience and encourages Sid not to get too worked up about her physique. Sid begs her to quit staring at his meat, saying he has no interest in seeing her body at all. After Alexia calls his steak worms, Sid makes the unimaginable decision. He emerges from the hot tub completely nude and displays his enormous schlong to Alexia. All Alexia can do is watch Sid get out of the tub and wipe himself, leaving her dumbfounded. The trial of the goddess starts in the next scene. Jack Nelson, the acting archbishop, opens the proceedings with a speech and opens the enchanted barrier surrounding the arena. Alexia, the person tasked with looking into Archbishop Drake's death. She wonders why Jack would forbid her from conducting any additional research. She considers returning to the city to ask her father for additional authority, but she decides it will take too long. As she claps, she notices that everyone is clapping, except for her Natsume Ekbeta and her large milk jugs. Alexia becomes envious of Beta's large pitcher. Additionally, Beta cites her and can't stop thinking negative things about her. By treading on Beta's foot, Alexia eases the tension between them. The first competitor, Top Bacterius, takes the stage to face the first warrior from the past, as the contest nearly instantly gets underway. As he sits among the onlookers, Sid muses on how awesome it would be to make a big entrance wearing his shadow suit. He immediately slakes his thirst and determines it's best to stick to his supporting role. Top calls forth his warrior and engages in combat with it. As soon as the match is over, Sid goes next. Since Sid never registered to participate in the goddess trial, he is taken aback when the commentator shouts his name. Sid comes up with several strategies to prevent conflict. Though he is aware that he would face consequences, he considers fleeing. Oh well, he gave it to them because the audience asked for it. With the use of his purple magic, Sid transforms into Shadow. The whole audience is in awe that such a strong individual would attend the function. Jack waits to see what happens since he thinks this is bad. Sid, also known as Shadow, calls the Witch of Calamity Aurora, an ancestor warrior, to the arena. The others are informed by Beta about the identity of the Witch of Calamity, who she claims has a passion for creating havoc wherever she goes. Shadow's opponent is about to face him. He grinned and hoped that this time he would be able to fight with all of his force. But Aurora's attacks against the powerful Shadow proved to be ineffective. Rose and Alexia are standing next to each other, speculating on what Shadow may be considering or doing at that same moment. For a while, Shadow loves the journey, but eventually grows bored and defeats the witch. After the battle is ended, Shadow activates a larger magic barrier and destroys the one surrounding the arena. This spell is identified by Alpha as the Sanctuary answering Shadow's call. It turns out that during his altercation with Aurora, Sid unintentionally opened the sanctuary door. He makes an effort to move away from the door, but it follows him everywhere. Sid eventually goes through the door and out the other side. The arena's sanctuary entrance is constantly changing shapes and illuminating. Jack tells the audience to leave the arena so there won't be any casualties, and they obediently comply. Additionally, he tries to get Rose and Alexia out of the arena, but the Shadow Garden fighters stop him. The Highnesses are told by Alpha to remain composed until they shut the door. It's not like they have an option, really. While Alpha and Delta enter through the door, Alexia, Jack, and Rose remain where they are. Holding Jack the Baldy captive, Epsilon controls the females. Jack gives the order for Venom, his silent assassin, to eliminate Epsilon since he won't be held captive. When Venom cuts Epsilon's false breasts, she gets irritated. After severing his body in pieces, Epsilon and the others go through the sanctuary door. The sanctuary, where Olivier killed the demon Diablos and sealed its left arm, is located on the other side of the entrance. When Jack inquires about their search, Alpha responds that their goal is to uncover the truth, which is ingrained in history. Jack and the rest are unable to comprehend. They all have good reason to think that the Cult of Diablo is planning to bring the demon back to life, Alpha continues. They must discover everything they can about the demon and Olivia, the hero, in order to vanquish them. When Alpha arrives at the sanctuary entrance, she uses her power to open it. Sid enters a room on the opposite side of the sanctuary and discovers the witch he had previously called. When he asks if she was the witch he battled with, she responds that she doesn't remember ever having left the sanctuary. As Sid prepares to depart, the woman begs him back, pleading for him to free her from her bonds. Sid draws his sword mindlessly and slashes the woman free. The woman is kept there for roughly a millennium before experiencing liberation. Sid would like to be on his own, but she encourages him to collaborate with her, so they can find a way out of the sanctuary. The witch informs him that they are better off together than apart, because magic is essentially worthless in the sanctuary. Sid was forced to follow along, so he did just that. Olivia's recollections of the wicked cult are experienced by Alpha and the others in another location. It seems that the members of the cult once abducted kids from orphanages and experimented on them. Many of them perished. One of her memories is also reached by Sid and his friend. She sees her younger self crawling there and gives her a swat. After learning that the cult members were merging demon cells to produce a new demon, Alpha and the others find out. They eventually ran out of demon cells to give the kids. Olivia was therefore given the responsibility of removing fresh demon cells from Diablos. She eventually succeeded in doing so and capturing the demon. She carried the demon's left arm to the sanctuary, where it has remained intact ever since. The Cult of Diablos came up with enhancement pills, similar to the ones Xenon used in the beginning, once they thought of ways to modify the arm. Those who take the tablets are bestowed with an immortal body and immense strength. A man who resembles Jack is seen creating the medication in the memory. It is possible that Jack has been abusing the substance and surviving for a very long time. Jack makes an effort to refute their accusations, but in vain. They have to take the medication approximately once a year to maintain the results, is the first drawback Alpha points out. Additionally, she reveals that Jack is the 11th knight in Cult's Night of Rounds. Jack becomes a demon after learning the truth and is cut. But he rises again, completely changed into a demon, and launches an assault on Alpha and the others. Now she and Delta must battle Jack Nelson, the 11th Knight of Rounds. Jack divides his physical form into 11 distinct doppelgangers. When Delta feels particularly eager for kills, she quickly dispatches them all. She asks Jack what's going on when she gradually starts to lose power. Jack informs her that as they approach the sanctuary's center, their powers are being absorbed more fully. But as they go closer to the sanctuary's center, Jack's abilities increase. Jack doubles up on the size of his doppelganger in preparation for Bout 2. Sid and the witch Aurora enter a terrible flashback while exploring a different area of the sanctuary. The bodies of fallen warriors litter this recollection like a battlefield. As Aurora and Sid stroll through the area devastated by fighting, Aurora finds herself crying once more. After stealing a sword from a soldier, Aurora approaches her younger self and cuts her down. All of a sudden, she is attacked by the fallen warriors once more. To prevent the wish from becoming lost in a memory, Sid dashes in. Epsilon and her group discover another zombie in their own area of the sanctuary in the interim. Epsilon approaches the zombie and dispels it as a possessed spirit, as the rest flee from it. Epsilon tells them that if Sid hadn't had such power over them, they would have been just like the ghost. They gradually begin to lose their abilities as they converse. Epsilon's prosthetic breasts slide down once more, but she immediately raises them. After eliminating all of the zombies in their path, Sid and Aurora also defeat Aurora's younger self. They are taken right away to the center of the shrine, where they find a sword carved out of a stone. Alpha and the others are taken aback as Delta goes on an explosive spree and eliminates all of Jack's doppelgangers. The door leading to the middle of the sanctuary is still despite Sid and Aurora's attempts to break it down. Sid is called to attention by Aurora to the sword etched in the stone. After Sid tries to push it outdoors, he discovers that only the chosen ones are capable of making it function. In another scene, Delta eliminates every one of Jack's clones, leaving the elderly Baldy clinging to life. Fearing for his life, Jack calls upon Olivia's spirit from her statue to aid him in his desperate attempt to win the war. At that moment, Rose, Epsilon, Alexia, and the rest of the group join Alpha and her own crew. They inform them that they have at last discovered a way out of the sanctuary. There is a doorway that they all open, and Alpha guides her squad through it. Jack is ecstatic and taken aback to learn that he won't be passing away that day. In order to get rid of the last of the invaders and return to reality, he begs Olivia to follow him. A notification informs Jack that there are some trespassers in the middle of the sanctuary. He joins Sid and Aurora at the sanctuary center, bringing Olivia with him. Jack gives Olivia the command to assault the Dew as he discovers them planning their next move. Olivia fights Sid right away after deciding to take action. Sid gives everything his all to hits and wonders why he was holding back for Olivia. Sid explains to him that he is merely attempting to speak with a warrior. As Jack is ready to resume the fight, Aurora intervenes and advises Sid to refrain from taking on the formidable Olivier. Sid refuses to give up and constantly putting Olivier in danger of fighting. Olivier gives Sid one last blow and stabs him in the stomach. Sid feels compelled to enter shadow mode. For him, things would start to get interesting now. Sid uses a little of his magic to bite Olivia in the neck after she stabs him in the belly. By doing this, Jack loses his grip on her and sends her back to the afterlife. Sid tends to his wounds and takes the sword from his belly. Jack is shocked that Sid still possesses this level of magical ability. He queries him on how he managed to avoid being slain by Olivia's sword. He's not going to hit any crucial organs, Sid tells him, because he employed magic to control all his internal organs. That didn't matter though, because Jack had other ideas. This time, Jack awakens the numerous clones of Olivia that he has created throughout the years. Sid eliminates all of the clones by using his shadow powers. Jack queries him on how, after being physically assaulted by the clones, he retains his magic. Sid informs him that in order to keep the sanctuary from absorbing all of his magic power, he gathered it into a solid mass. As Jack becomes more enraged, he sends more Olivia clones in Sid's direction. With a smile, Sid declares, "I am atomic again." And with that, he sets off a bomb big enough to blow up the whole sanctuary, including Jack. Sid awakens in Aurora's arms in a woodland following the explosion. Aurora starts to literally, Alpha and the others in the Shadow Garden saved them. Alexia suggests that the three of them establish a research group with the goal of learning everything there is to know about the Cult of Diablos and the Shadow Garden in order to prevent themselves from falling behind. Natsume initially declines to participate, believing Alexia would be unable of leading such a group. But in the end, she agrees to accompany them. Alpha and Epsilon talk about the next stage of their plan in the following scene. As they go to their location, she also informs Epsilon that the Witch of Calamity, Aurora, had a second name that Sid probably never heard about. Epsilon Aurora's true nature, as the demon Diablos is revealed by Alpha. They should anticipate that the cult would target Midgar Kingdom's royal city for their next move, as the Bunchen Festival approaches. Next, Luna has a meeting with a real estate agent to discuss purchasing a large parcel of property in Vigalta City. Following a protracted period of negotiations, Luna consents to pay the dealer 120 million zeni for the land. Alpha is seen tending to her girls following the negotiation. She has a flashback of the first few days of the Shadow Garden, when she and Shadow shared a little building. She learns that Pervishat from the Oriana Kingdom is traveling to the royal capital of Midgar while she is thinking back on the past. Alpha gets ready to protect the city from its adversaries, after realizing that this could be a potential cult maneuver. Meanwhile, Alexia and Iris talk about the state of the Shadow Garden and the Cult of Diablos. Alexia tries to convince Iris that the Diablos cult is actually the real enemy. But Iris assures her that she doesn't give a damn, and that her only goal is to use her sword to bring down both groups. In contrast, Rose may be seen practicing her fencing outside in the rain. She wants to do something akin to the lovely fencing shadow that was on exhibit in the church at the time. But she had to stop practicing because she gets a sudden, intense pain in her chest. Unaware of its origin or method of entry, a sort of curse magic is unleashed on Rose's chest. As the annual fencing festival approaches, Sid considers several strategies to join the battle without giving away his true identity. He could sample the strength of the expert combatants who are traveling to Midgar from all the kingdoms. Perhaps he could locate someone deserving enough to challenge him. He devises the most brilliant scheme of all. Thus, Sid would be sure to pose as a coward, lose a couple of matches, and then start taking out each competent fighter one by one. Fantastic, huh? Sid arrives at Luma's clothes store to begin his scheme. There, he requests that she locate an excellent weakling disguise for his Bunchen Festival persona. Confused, Luna follows her boss's plan without raising too many concerns. She instructs him to select the weakest weakling from a list that she has shown him. Sid selected Mundane Man as his personality. He was a dark knight with no friends or family. Sid instructs Luna to use her magic, since he believes this to be the best disguise for him. With the use of her magical face-changing device, Luna turns Sid into a perfect duplicate of Mundane Man. After the change is finished, Sid looks through different outfits to see which ones fit his personality best, and finds some that work well. The townspeople see the stunning warrior Anaros from the Vigalta Kingdom in the next scene. Anaros struts around in all her beauty. She approaches Mundane Man after spotting him and inquires as to whether he took part. She thought Mundane Man would not stand a chance against the formidable opponents at the Bunchen Festival based only on his meek appearance. She therefore suggests that he give up now in order to still be able to prevent any long-term harm in the future. In essence, Mundane tells her to shut up and gets on with his life. He gets together with Quentin, a bully. In order to prevent his fists from crushing him, Quentin gives him the order to withdraw from the competition. Disregarding him, Mundane Man proceeds on his own path. When Quentin becomes irritated, he attacks Man. A few blows later, Anna Rose intervenes and breaks up the brawl. She then tells Mundane Man not to fight in the event, but Sid continues to have his way. Next, Mundane Man completes the tournament registration process and moves on to the next stage of the plan. Sid returns to his regular self after signing up, and he meets Scal at Tuna King, a restaurant that is similar to McDonald's. Sid dismisses Scal's suggestion to borrow money from him so he can wager on the competition. Sid meets Rose by the town fountain and gives Skin a memento from Lindworm before departing. Rose obsesses about him about building a team with Alexia, Beta, and herself. Sid follows the discussion till he sees Rose becoming serious. Rose informs him that she would be seeing Pervishat, her fiancé, shortly, and that she is unsure of what to do about it. It appears that Rose and Perv are not in love, and the marriage is arranged. She begs Sid to never lose faith in her, regardless of what occurs. Sid gets up and says he will continue to have faith in her. The following day, Sid and Skell watch two warriors engage in a staged street fight. A real knight in shining armor named Goldie Gilded shows up to watch the game with them. Skell greets him and strikes up a conversation. Sid leaves to change into his ordinary man attire in the interim. Goldie Gilded checks the warrior's power level in the battle arena with his magic eye when he's away. When Mundane Man faces Mr. Gonzalez, his opponent, he vanquishes him in an instant. Everyone is wondering what the hell occurred during the fight, but nobody was able to see what happened quickly enough except Anoros, who was watching from behind. When Sid arrives back from his dump, he sees Anoros's look of surprise. He ends the day with a vow to do better at the arena. The following day, prior to falling asleep, Skell taps on his door. After responding, Skell displays to Sid the awful information found in the paper. Rose had stabbed Pervashat, her face. Sid questions what may have motivated Rose to act in that manner. Natsu and Alexia look into the mystery behind Rose's crime. Rose is said to have stabbed her fans. After the incident, Pervashat has vanished from sight. Rose is seen in the sewers managing to get away from the guards. Natsu and Alexia are constantly debating whether it would be prudent to press charges and jeopardize the harmony between the Midgar and Oriana kingdoms. Natsu encourages Alexia not to plunge into things too quickly in the most courteous way possible. Alexia becomes so enraged about this that she threatens Natsu. She swiftly gets over it and meets with her sister to discuss the situation. Natsu, also known as Bada, converses with one of the shadows after Alexia leaves. She learns from the shadow that Rose continued to beat her chest as she escaped the guards. Next, Sid reads the latest on Rose's absence while watching a match between two guys. Skell begs Sid for money since he continues losing his bets. Ignoring him, Sid leaves to put on his unremarkable man outfit. He meets Beatrix, a strange woman who follows him into the changing room and asks him repeatedly whether he has seen the elf she is searching for. She claims to have smelled an elf nearby, but Sid tells her he has no idea where the elf is. Sid maintains his background character act and persuades the woman that he is ignorant. Sid goes to the arena to face his next opponent after he has finished changing. Anoros and Quentin meet to discuss the weakling who appears to be ruining everything he touches. Anoros answers Quentin's question on Mundane Man. Anoros informs him that Golden Gilded, the undefeated legend, will be Quentin's next opponent. Quentin is perplexed and unsure of his true identity. Anoros informs him that Golden is really a coward who only enters bouts with opponents he knows he can defeat in order to maintain his undefeated record. It appears that this time, he greatly underestimated Mundane Man. As soon as the contest is called, Golden Gilded attacks the referee ineffectively. He goes for the man's head, but before he can behead him, Man cracks his neck. When Gilded notices this, he retreats. He unleashes his magic in a fit of rage. Then he charges at the weak, immovable man and pays a heavy price for it. Golden Gilded is hurled out of the ring in a heartbeat. As Quentin's eyes were closed, he asks Anoros what transpired. Anoros informs him that the man sneezed and swung his sword at Golden Gilded. When Quentin loses patience, he exits the arena. Iris sees Pervashat, Rose's fiancé, somewhere, and he seems to be doing well. Iris queries how he could accomplish that, and Perv ridicules the Midgars by claiming that they are all overly preoccupied with the smallest of details. Along with revealing Iris Rose's vegetable father, the mischievous man threatens to make things ugly between the two kingdoms if she gets involved in their affairs. Iris keeps her composure all the way through. Quentin gets to battle Mundane Man the following day. The fight starts and ends quickly as usual, with Quentin burying his head in the sand. Everyone is shocked at how someone as weak as Quentin could be destroyed by such a weakling. Walking back to the changing room is Mundane Man. He encounters Honor Rose en route, who advises him to proceed with extreme caution. He is told that she has seen all of his moves, and that she is prepared to go above and beyond to win. After removing his weights, Mundane Man reassures her that their next match will be more serious, and to not worry. Honor Rose is in disbelief. The guards finally catch up to the Rose in the final scene. Before making her way deeper into the sewers, she manages to subdue one of them. Sid dreams that his persona, Mundane Man, vanquishes his adversaries. When he awakens to a loud knock on his door, he discovers that Skell has discovered a poster that places a bounty on Rose's head. 10 million zeni would be awarded to the person who captures her. At first, Sid is indifferent, but he soon gets interested. After getting dressed, he drags Skell to the princess location. The next scene shows Sid walking around the town, wondering why Rose would have treated her fiancé in such a manner. He abruptly recalls his previous life while he's at it, when at a very young age, he was made to learn the piano by force. Sid acknowledges that learning to play the piano helped him fulfill his background character life, even though he thought it was a waste of time. He stops by an opera and watches Epsilon play one of the Moonlight Sonata, a popular tune only known in his past life. Epsilon expresses gratitude to him for attending her opera, and for his presence after the performance. She tells him she's been awarded lots of gifts, and even an invite to the palace following her outstanding performances in her previous operas. Sid cuts to the chase and asks her about Rose. Since Bet is the one assigned to her case, Epsilon's in the dark about the case. Sid thanks her for her service and walks back home. Elsewhere, Alexia and Rose scour the city sewers to look for Rose. Alexia explains to Natsume that her father was never really behind her doing all the investigative work. She says she, however, wants to find out what really happened to Rose that made her stab her fans. As they discuss, Alexia takes them both to a staircase that leads down into the underground labyrinth of the kingdom. Natsume asks Alexia if she informed anybody she'd be coming over to the labyrinth. Alexia tells her she's the only one who knows about their visit to the labyrinth. In the meantime, Rose lies down in the sewers all filled with blood. She flashes back to the first time she discovered her fiancé was a criminal. In the flashback, Rose is summoned to see her father only to find out that Perv and his deceptive men had put her father in a vegetative state. They planned to rule the kingdom of Oriana through the half-human king. Rose immediately rebels and slashes Perv in the chest before running away. Perv's guards pursue her through the city until she escapes their sights. Rose loses all hope as her curse begins to overtake her body. She suddenly remembers Sid and wonders if he still feels the same way about her after hearing what she's done. She falls asleep for a while and is woken by the sound of Moonlight Sonata playing on a piano somewhere nearby. She walks towards the source of the sound and finds Shadow himself playing the piano. After the performance, Shadow faces Rose and asks her the reason she slashed her face. Rose gets scared and tells Shadow that all she wanted to do was to protect her family. Shadow asks her if she would keep fighting against all odds. Rose tells him she would do anything to change the fate of her family. Shadow, in all his eminence, grants Rose some of his power and leads her to fight the ninjas behind her. Rose uses her sword to smite all the enemies in her sight. Once she's done, Rose gets back into the labyrinth. She meets Alexia and Natsume on the way. Alexia asks her to explain herself, but Rose chooses to protect her and stay quiet. Alexia gets very annoyed at Rose for hiding the truth from her. She tries to fight Rose for the answer, but Rose knocks her down and gives her to Bada. Bada tends to Alexia and wishes Rose success in all her endeavors. Rose leaves the scene to find her next lead. A few hours after twilight, Shadow walks back home and finds his sister Claire waiting for him by his door. Sid gets pinned down on his bed by his sister Claire. Claire, in her way, strangles her little brother, asking him why he keeps breaking every promise he's made to her. Turns out Sid has little to no regard for his big sister, who was chosen to fight in the Bunchen Festival in place of Rose. She had already bought a ticket for Sid and made it mandatory for him to attend her match. Sid has no choice but to say yes. Up next, Natsume and Alexia keep investigating Rose's crime. They find a letter from the Oriana Kingdom and wonder what it meant. At that moment, the fireworks fill the sky at the arena. There, Sid arrives at the noble VIP seat and finds Iris. Initially, he refuses to sit near the princess, but Iris insists he stays there with her. When Sid's fully settled, Iris apologizes for treating him like crap back when they were investigating Xenon. Sid accepts the apology and gets his tea. It's time for the matchup between Anoros and Monday Man. The other noble students near Iris talk about her winning the tournament. Before changing into Mundane Man, Sid butts and tells them about Mundane Man. The students have a hard time figuring out who Sid is, but Iris introduces him to them. The four of them talk about mundane man's insane speed and confidence. This tickles Sid the right way until they talk about Lady Beatrix, the weird elf warrior that confronted Sid the other time. When the time is right, Sid excuses himself to change into mundane man. He meets Beatrix on the way and gets into a weird one-word conversation with her before leaving for the changing room. Meanwhile, Pervashat joins Iris in her seat to talk about Rose and the Oriana kingdom. Iris asks after the real king of Oriana, King Klaus Perv, who's hidden the vegetable king in a basement, tells her he'd be joining them later. He changes the subject to the fight about to happen and puts his money on Honoro's winning the fight. Perv asks Iris what she thinks about Honoro's opponent, Mundane Man. Iris tells him Mundane Man is a fighter with insane speed and confidence. Perv tells her speed and confidence can't win a match. Iris tells him to wait and see what the unpredictable warrior has under his sleeves. The referee starts the match and Aneros takes the first strike. Mundane Man gets so fast that Aneros fights his afterimages. During the first few minutes of the fight, Aneros gets very overwhelmed by Mundane. She admits to him being stronger than her and decides to launch a counterattack against him. Mundane sees right through her plan and strikes her down at the last minute. Both Iris and Perv are very shocked to see the weird weakling completely obliterate his opponent again. Since her next few matches would land her in a match with Mundane, Perv asks Iris what she thinks of her matchup with him. Iris tells him she's going to win no matter what. Perv leaves his chair for his chambers. On his way, he tells his agent to find out who and where Mundane Man was from so he could crush his potential problems. In the meantime, Honoros meets up with her best opponent and thanks him for the fight. Mundane tells her not to be ashamed of her loss, as that was the first time he took his opponent seriously. Honoros gets more flustered and wishes him a good day. The next scene shows a one-sided fight between Iris and her opponent. Iris completely beats down her opponent and sights Beatrix nearby. She rushes towards the elf and introduces herself. A few hours before dark, Sid walks back home with a smile on his face. He gets back home only to meet his sister waiting for him again. Sid is stupefied. By nightfall, Rose looks herself in the mirror and asks an unseen force to grant her more power to face her kingdom's enemies. A night before her match with Mundane Man, Iris trains one more time in the plain fields of Midgar. During her training, she flashes back to her days of glory, where she was respected by every member of the kingdom. Even members of the Dark Knights appreciated her tremendous power. However, there was one person who wasn't so trusting of her abilities, and that was her father, the king of Midgar himself. According to him, Iris was too violent to handle serious matters. A violent person can be weak often. This irritates Iris so much that she swears to prove her strength to her father and everyone in her battle with Mundane Man. The next day, Sid gets to eat breakfast with the nobles. He even wears a suit and sips coffee. Iris joins him and has a taste of the coffee he was drinking since she liked it so much. As they eat breakfast, the war goddess, Beatrix, arrives at the dining hall. Iris welcomes her warmly to eat with them, and she joins them. At the table, Beatrix discusses some small talk with the servers and the others. Then, she turns her attention to Sid and tells everyone she suspects Sid is strong and is only going to get stronger. Everyone's surprised she even noticed him, but are forced to agree with her thoughts. In the meantime, Perv gives the king of Oriana another dose of the stroke-inducing drug. He's been giving him for a while now. He finally explains his plan for both Oriana and Midgar. The evil man plans to use the vegetable king of Oriana to assassinate the current king of Midgar. Nobody would ever suspect he's behind it all, so there will be a war between both kingdoms. This would make him go higher in ranks of the Cult of Diablos. His only problem now is Mundane Man, the weirdo who appeared out of nowhere and started beating down the strongest warriors in the land. As he thinks about his plan, he runs into Beatrix and recognizes her off the bat. Perv greets her and walks to the VIP seats with the king. Just about then, The first match of the night begins between Claire Kagenou and her opponent. Claire wins the matchup and gets to go home victorious. The next match is the most anticipated match in the whole festival. The match between Mundane Man and the Princess of Midgar, Princess Iris. The referee begins the match, and almost at an instant, Iris foresees her own death. In her hallucination, she sees herself getting beheaded. She snaps out of it and sees Mundane Man still standing right at his spot. Nobody understands what just happened. She takes her stance and tries attacking again. This time around, she foresees her feet getting cut off. Meanwhile, Rose makes it to the festival to carry out her plan of saving her kingdom. Back on the arena grounds, Iris keeps standing and falling. This gets some mouths murmuring what could be wrong with her. Iris releases all of her power and charges towards Mundane Man. Mundane Man stands still and allows her to get close enough. Then he gets to her back and pins her down by the neck. Iris just witnessed her first loss ever. Everyone, including Perv, is surprised this even happened in the first place. How? He eventually gets to see Rose again and kickstarts his plan. Rose gets close to Perv and charges towards him to stab him. However, Perv puts the king in the way and Rose accidentally stabs her father. Instead of getting remorseful, Rose smiles and prepares to attack Perv's guards. They all charge at her at once to kill her. Thankfully, Mundane Man steps in just in time to strike them all down. Once he's finished with the men, Mundane Man reveals his true self as Shadow. However, Rose recognizes him as Stylish Bandit Slayer, the person who saved her from being captured by the bandits when she was little. Rose gets into despair and begs for Shadow's forgiveness. Shadow tells her to brace herself for the fight that's to come. He then challenges Perv to a fight, but Lady Beatrix, who's been intrigued by his sheer strength, steps in to fight Shadow. In the final scene, Perv sneaks off to carry out the last phase of his plan, as the two legends face each other. After his fight with Iris, Mundane Man rushes to the VIP section of the arena to protect Rose from Perv's men. On getting there, he reveals his true self, Shadow. Iris gets angry that she lost, so she joins hands with Beatrix to attack Shadow himself. The King of Midgar arranges for Rose's father's body to be transported back to Oriana, while they take care of the darkness in town. Beatrix and Shadow take their fight to a building's roof. Shadow tests Beatrix's power out by appearing and disappearing before her own eyes. Beatrix is shocked, even though she couldn't trace Shadow's movement. Just before Shadow's about to enjoy himself, Iris joins them and unsheathes her artifact sword. Shadow recognizes the sword and asks Iris to entertain him well. Iris gets angry and lunges at him. Shadow blocks all the attacks and fights them. In the meantime, Rose is seen wandering the streets. She gets confused as to where to go. Alpha appears to her and tells her her new fate. Iris and Beatrix keep attacking and chasing Shadow all around town. Shadow restrains himself from going all out, so he doesn't hurt the two ladies fighting him. Meanwhile, Rose finds out she'll be leaving everything she ever knew behind to get to her new life. She joins hands with Alpha and follows her to the Shadow Garden's hideout. Iris gets more annoyed at her weaknesses. Beatrix keeps a calm posture and continues fighting Shadow. Together, Iris and Beatrix swing their swords at the amazed Shadow to keep entertaining him. Iris gets left behind at a point and leaves Beatrix to keep fighting Shadow. She wastes no time rejoining the fight at the city tower to prepare for a second attack. She tells Beatrix to attack Shadow as soon as she immobilizes him. Shadow dares her to try and get her riled up. Iris lets her rage get the best of her and ends up getting immobilized herself. Beatrix also launches her attack and gets immobilized alongside Iris. When he's done with them, Shadow steps on them and walks forward. Both warriors still manage to get up to fight. Iris tells Shadow there's nowhere to hide anymore as every soldier in the capital is after him. Shadow gets very flustered and lets out a maniacal laugh. When he's done showing his madness, he finally gets serious. In an instant, Shadow creates a strong isolation barrier around the entire capital and levitates in the air. Iris and Beatrix both wonder what the legend is about to do as he floats in the air. They both surrender to the great power before them and get to witness the earth-shattering power of the Eminence of the Shadow. Shadow says the phrase, "You know, I am atomic," and almost bombs the entire city. Iris falls to her knees, crying as she admits defeat. A few days after the fight, a scene is shown with Sherry swearing to take revenge on Shadow for eliminating her demon father Lutheran. Meanwhile, Per faces some serious scolding from his superiors at the cult. Iris finally leaves the city for greener pastures, and the Shadows keep up communication and order in the kingdom. Sid, on the other hand, returns to school after its reconstruction with Poe. He also finds out Skell was now a fisherman and had quit school due to his gambling problems. Alpha takes Rose to the ancient city of Alexandria, their base of operations. She entrusts Rose's new training to Lambda, the recruit's training instructor. Lambda strips Rose and assigns her the number 666. She then tells Rose to forget all she ever knew and welcome her new life as a shadow. Shadow plays the piano as he knows the hour of awakening is finally at hand.